It was just the sort of encore the theatre company needed. Although down on last year's funding, the state government grant of $110,000 should put doubt over the company's future to rest.
It certainly does. It guarantees the future of the Hunter Valley Theatre Company, and 1996 is our 20th anniversary, so it's a very important year.
It's been touch and go for the company this year, bailed out of debt by the Newcastle City Council, which in return called in the lease on the Civic Playhouse. As well, a rival breakaway theatre group is also competing for funding dollars. The Hunter Valley Theatre Company plans 4 shows next year and is yet to appoint an artistic director. You've got the program, you've got the funding for 96. Where will you be playing?
That's a good issue. Well, I'd like to see at least one production of the Civic Theatre, and we've had discussions with the Mission Playhouse, and we probably have we're looking at venues outside the city centre on occasions.
It's been held each year for as long as any of the mission's volunteers can remember. They serve meals donated by businesses who weren't asked to give but did anyway. There are no presents, but the people who come and leave alone offer one another simple gifts: a balloon, a cup of tea or a little conversation. Another welfare agency, the Hunter Mission, is holding a lunch in Civic Park on Christmas Day. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
The long wait appears to be almost over today for developers of 3 new residential complexes planned for Hunter Street's East End and Newcastle Beach. The Esplanade Hotel and Parnell Place Bus Depot complex and the Irene Hall Nurses' Quarters at the Royal Newcastle Hospital have been given the thumbs up, subject to minor design changes. The Metro building opposite Newcastle Railway Station has also been approved, but it will have to be redesigned to reduce its height and size. The approval follows yesterday's vow by DEHU Proprietary Limited, owner of the Esplanade site, that a no vote would land council in the Land and Environment Court. Managing Director Ron Lindsay today said he was relieved the 18-month-long wait was finally over. Meanwhile, Council also turned its attention to revitalising the Hunter Street Mall, approving the hiring of a Sydney firm of architects to prepare a strategic design. Laura Saperstein, NBN News.
Many retailers haven't got what they wanted for Christmas this year. Their tills aren't turning over as fast as they'd like. Newcastle's Regional Retailers Association says business has been patchy and difficult.
Last week we thought this week would be a fairly cracker week, but unfortunately again it's been fairly patchy, so the consistency's not there.
Paul Murphy says quite a few retailers won't achieve last year's figures. He blames people's economic situation.
I think that they're all finding it rather difficult to make ends meet. I think that the people are wandering around looking for value for money on items.
Retailers say expensive items are not selling well, but smaller gifts and appliances are proving popular. With the pre-Christmas Christmas trade depressed, shops hope to make more at the post-Chrissy clearance sales. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
The Westpac chopper was called in about 3 this afternoon to Sunshine on the southern end of Lake Macquarie. The 16-year-old patient rushed to John Hunter Hospital suffering hypothermia. Part of a special holiday camp, the Sydney girl had been sailing between Sunshine and Poolborough Island when she was tossed into the water. She stayed in the lake for 30 minutes before she was brought ashore. The teenager was treated by ambulance officers on the scene. She's in a stable condition tonight in the emergency section of the hospital. Obviously distressed, the other members of the group would not comment on the accident. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Paceman Peter March was named in the 13-man squad chosen last night and will be Gary O'Sullivan's deputy for the 10-day tournament starting in Victoria next week. Mace, Ross, Stambridge and Rickson were all included, along with Atkinson and Hutchison. In basketball, the Falcons have moved a step closer to finalising their roster for 1996. Western Australian Ben Pepper is the latest recruit after Matt Moore, brother of Manly Rugby League player Danny, signed earlier in the week. In water polo, a Russian under-16 team took on the best in Newcastle at Lambton Pool last night. The visitors playing in the dark caps proved too good for the locals, winning both their matches. And Brisbane has completed a clean sweep of the Hunter Eagles at Maitland today. The ABL leaders won yesterday's doubleheader comfortably and had a convincing win this afternoon. Canberra Gelding, Here's the Prince, getting up in the last stride to beat Ruslan. Ridden by Shane Dye, Here's the Prince was the 15-4 favourite. Ruslan started at 8s and Pragmatism was third at 40-1. Earlier in the day, Legal Agent returned from a spell in outstanding fashion in the razor-sharp handicap. Trained by Pat Quinn, the top weight jumped at 11-2, 9-1 for Montana Sands, while the 9-4 favourite Madison Point was third. Like Newcastle, West Adelaide was hoping to end a growing losing streak which stood at 4. Olyroos forward Jim Sekentis went some way to alleviating the situation, just beating Craig Carter in the 34th minute. But the Breakers outplayed the Sharks in the dying stages of both halves. Craig sharply rewarded in injury time of the first period. West Adelaide broke the deadlock in the 62nd minute, Pablo Cardoza scoring the winner, his 6th goal of the season. An encouraging performance from the Breakers, who were unlucky not to share the points. And there's no respite for Newcastle, who face Brisbane and an informed Frank Farina on Boxing Day. Farina was devastating, scoring a hat-trick in the Strikers' 4-0 demolition of Sydney United last night.
What started as a leisurely Christmas afternoon swim for two men in the entrance channel quickly turned to tragedy when they became caught in a rip, one of them swept out to sea. The sandbar their two girlfriends were standing on collapsed and they too were washed into the strong current. 3 jet ski riders saw the two girls and one of the men.
One of them was yelling out for help, so I told my mate to grab him, and then we found the 2 others.
They were brought to shore.
They said there was still one more out there, so we went out there looking for them.
Lifesavers on rubber duckies searched the area. The Westpac chopper was also called in. Concerned friends and family could only wait, but with every hour, hope faded. The 20-year-old from the East Sydney suburb of Maroubra is missing, believed drowned. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
In the Hunter region and on the Central Coast, it's also been a hectic day for shoppers. They queued early for the best bargains, and when the doors finally opened at Charlestown Square's Grace Brothers store, most knew where they were headed. Lingerie again proved popular, so too shoes, ladies and men's clothing and homeware. And of course, for those preparing for next year's festive time, there were lots of bargains in Christmas decorations and cards. As the day progressed, the swarm of eager shoppers swelled, with management of both Grace Brothers and David Jones reporting figures much improved on last year.
Today's been absolutely fantastic. From 8 o'clock the shoppers have come in and we've had an exceptionally good day on last year, which is good to see.
Excellent. Good crowds at the doors this morning at 8 o'clock and the traffic through the shop's been steady ever since.
The sales will continue for another 2 weeks. Numerous O calls alerted brigades to the blaze in Dangar Street, Wickham. It broke out just after 2:30 this morning and quickly engulfed offices on the top floor. During a search of the building this morning, investigators found containers which had held petrol. They say the fuel was spread throughout the warehouse.
There's been a number of fire trails set throughout the building with an accelerant, and some of those fire trails have ignited and others haven't.
Because of the quick action of firefighters, the blaze didn't spread to the rest of the warehouse, which is used as a truck depot by the company Integrated Transport. Computers and office equipment were destroyed by the fire, along with goods awaiting delivery. The damage bill estimated at more than $250,000. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
The state's 1.8 million people who fish for recreation have the potential to be one of the most powerful lobby groups in politics. Hence, it's no great surprise about the state government's eagerness to get their opinions before the release of the 5-yearly review of freshwater fishing laws. It will cover all aspects of fishing, bag and size limits, the continuation of closed seasons and the type of fishing gear allowed.
People always consider that there's probably too much fishing or fishing incorrectly at the wrong place at the wrong time or not enough fish. So we've got to balance that, always have enough fish for future generations, but yet look at how we can best manage our fishery.
One proposal under review is for major water supplies such as Grahamstown Dam near Newcastle to be open to fishing.
The areas where we don't have fishing is in the large city water supplies, and it's something we're going to have to work through and work very positively with, but at the end guarantee public health and safety.
There appears little chance of licences being reintroduced, and a review of saltwater fishing will begin late next year. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
It was smooth sailing in yesterday's start of the Pittwater to Coffs Harbour Classic. But last night, 90-kilometre-an-hour winds forced 10 crews out of the race. No one was injured in the storm. Good southerly winds today have pushed the race leader, Innkeeper, ahead. She's less than 100 kilometres from Coffs Harbour and should finish sometime tonight. About 10 kilometres behind is Wild Thing, then Collex Onyx. On handicap, Soundtrack is leading from Canon Copiers and The Bill.
Having won the first two races in the Australian Championships, Eltoft's Red Thunder again found the 20 to 25 knot northeasterly to its liking. It took out today's third race, and barring a mishap, Eltoft should claim his third Australian title. Belmont's Nathan Quirk was second, while in the juniors, local boat Addiction, skippered by James Griffith, kept its unbeaten record intact. Meantime, Olympic canoe hopeful Peter Scott from Redhead has played a part in the Sydney Slammers Round 3 victory of the National Surf League at Wollongong. Scott once again placed in the single ski event, then finished third in the mixed event with Swansea Belmont's Melissa Thurlow. Matt Chalmers, representing Tasmania, finished back in the field after sharing the lead for the first half of the mixed event.
On days like this, the ocean seems harmless enough, but these waters can kill. Yesterday, at Treachery Beach south of Foster, 2 Sydney men drowned while going for an early morning swim. A surfer, Martin Shipley, who pulled one of the men from the water and tried CPR on him for more than an hour, has been recommended for a bravery award. Rescue services have been stunned by the run of deaths, with 6 people drowning in the last 8 days.
The numbers are very high for this time of year. I believe it's probably the highest amount of calls we've had for drownings in the last 4 years.
There's no specific link between the deaths, but what is certain is that people are taking too many risks, not treating the ocean with the respect it deserves.
If you're not experienced, like I said, I mean, it might look calm, but it's not always calm. There's always rips, even when there's no waves, so you've got to be very careful.
Lifesavers are calling on those who don't know the surf to stick to patrolled beaches. And in this festive season, authorities are warning never to combine alcohol and surfing.
Alcohol and swimming don't mix. It's very lethal. Yeah, so do not drink and swim, no.
The Windsurfing Championships were conducted over the last week, Quinn dominating all 3 disciplines of slalom, freestyle and marathon. The winner of 3 world crowns, the victory will allow him to defend that title in Sardinia next June. In the 4th round of the national VJ titles on Lake Macquarie, there were upset results in both the senior and junior divisions today. The previously unbeaten Red Thunder, skippered by Sydney's George Eltoft, wasn't suited to the light conditions and finished 4th. Don Cross's Hornet won the race, with Nathan Quirk's Natural High 2nd and Small Quantity 3rd. It was a similar story in the juniors, with defending champion Michael Quirk in Rattle and Hum winning the heat, ahead of Strictly Sailing and Freaky Styley. Progressive leader Addiction was 4th, but like Red Thunder in the seniors, today's result is unlikely to affect the overall result, which will be known tomorrow afternoon.
It's not the picture postcard look we've come to expect on Australian beaches, the sand marked with a black stain.
It's just filthy. You know, what's happened to the beach, what's happened, everything, it's just awful.
While some fear it's the result of the ocean outfall, council officers have confirmed it's a natural phenomenon.
We can rest assure you it's not pollution. We have our health department check anything out like this, whether it be this dark sand, fatty substances that come out, and the water gets checked once a week.
It's either mineral runoff from the cliff faces above the beach or possibly sand which has been stained by rotting seaweed just off the coast.
Well, it breaks down to a very fine fragment and is lifted with the big seas.
Local lifesavers have had complaints about the beach, and so when the weather clears, the top layer of sand will be scooped off. Just underneath are those traditional golden grains. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
18 months ago, Lake Macquarie Council developed a rate system based on a 35% flat rate, with the remaining 65% based on land values. The council's revenue accountant, Laurie McGuinness, says the system followed extensive community consultation and study.
That was introduced with community consultation through the formation of a rating task force where there were representatives of the community involved, councillors from each of the then wards were involved in it.
But the state government has now proposed a review of that system. The government is arguing for a return to a system based solely on land values, saying it would be fairer for residents with low-value properties. The council says that such a system would see some lake residents hit by severe rate hikes, adding that just because people may own high-value property doesn't mean they necessarily earn a high income.
In general, it would disadvantage the higher valued properties, the waterfront properties and some rural holdings.
The council is now preparing a submission to the state government, strongly arguing for the current system to be retained. Emma Ossian, NBN News.
Gary Atkins escaped from Goulburn Jail in October last year. 2 weeks later, heavily armed police surrounded a house in Carrington where Atkins was believed to be staying. He had, however, already left the area. He was finally recaptured in Denny Street, Broadmeadow 2 days later. Earlier that morning, he'd robbed the Shell service station at the Nine Ways. As this security video shows, he had a stocking over his face and was armed with a shortened rifle. A security guard who was in the shop at the time can be seen behind a rack of magazines. Atkins approaches the guard and takes from him a semi-automatic pistol. He then steals the takings and flees from the shop. After he was recaptured, Atkins was shown this video. Newcastle Court heard that in a conversation with Detective Senior Constable Craig Devonshire, he said, "You've got nothing on me. My barrister will have a field day with you." However, in court today, Atkins pleaded guilty to the armed robbery, escaping from jail, another attempted escape from Newcastle Court, and possessing an unlicensed firearm. He'll be sentenced in Newcastle District Court in February. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
The Hobie Cats came to life in the strong southerly, topping speeds of 30 kilometres an hour across the bay. The Hobie 16s were in action today. World champion Aaron Worrell from Melbourne dominated the heats, his tactics outclassing the 100-strong fleet. While it is a national titles, Hobie sailors have come from across the world for the event. The racing here is seen as a good lead-up to the Worlds in Dubai in 2 months. The 16s continue tomorrow with the women's Hobie 16s, the Hobies 18s and 14 turbos on Friday. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The blue lining of the pool became discoloured and went white, and people were very unhappy, having paid a lot of money for this.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. What have we got here? It's sort of... And it's bubbling up.
Yep. And then whatever that impurity is, either with a...
Right.
One of those, and he said, well, that's what it is. He said, we've heard that UFI has gone into liquidation.
Oh my God, I'm going in there.
Yeah, so then...
By all accounts, this New Year's Eve was a relatively quiet affair. Police reported only 2 arrests and a general lack of trouble.
We're very happy with the way things went off. I think it bears testimony of the planning process we went through with various organisations leading up to it, and again, from a police point of view, we're more than happy.
During a New Year's Eve debrief this morning, Newcastle Police attributed part of the success to the early closing of hotels at 2 a.m, saying this encouraged many to arrive early and leave early. The foreshore celebrations and early 9 p.m. fireworks have also been hailed a success, providing a safe family atmosphere. Despite a general downturn in trading figures, the brewery experiencing a 45% drop, most hoteliers were also pleased with the night. Suggestions for next year's celebrations include the use of cans and plastic cups along the foreshore instead of glass bottles. The possible establishment of an alcohol-free zone at some of Newcastle's beaches is also being considered.
Certainly we had an alcohol-free zone declared at Jefferson Park at near the Beaches Hotel at Merriweather this year. And that was an immense success, so having in mind that success, it is probably an aspect that we could look at in coming years.
The opposition says this leaked staff evaluation proves that the government is preparing radical changes in the administration of the state's healthcare.
The Labor Party have been preparing bureaucrats throughout country New South Wales to be able to deal with the public relations backlash that's going to take place once every local area and every local hospital is disenfranchised.
Under the coalition, a centralised healthcare system was replaced by 23 regional boards in country New South Wales.
Andrew F. Shorgie and the Labor Party are now completely hell-bent on establishing about 4 or 6 big regional districts, which will take away all the local autonomy, all the local say in patient care.
The opposition claims it would affect nearly every country hospital. A spokesperson for State Health Minister Andrew F. Shorgie says a review of the district area health service is underway, but won't speculate on its possible outcomes. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. Isabella Doney is 85 years old. She still lives at home at Cardiff in Lake Macquarie, but she admits that she needs a bit of help with the housework. A worker from Home Care had been that helping hand until March last year.
They sent a letter to say that I wasn't going to have home care anymore. That was my last visit.
This is despite a long list of medical problems. Mrs Doney suffers from a weak heart, a hernia and needs a walking stick to get around. She now fears that an accident around the house could force her into a retirement home.
I can't get home care because I'm not getting personal. I'm not having personal here washing me. Well, what a lot of crap. Isn't it good to think I can bath myself at 85?
The acting general manager of home care, Janet Milligan, says the unfortunate fact is that there are other elderly people more needy of help. But pensioner groups say more money needs to be made available so every elderly person has the option to stay at home.
The government, in bringing in home and community care, said that all right, we'll look after you in your own home if you want to be there. But they haven't come up with the goods as far as the money to be able to do so.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.